Happy New Year! It's episode 4 of the FilmTell podcast. So I thought I'd kind of do a countdown review of 2023 of movies and music that I experienced over the year. This isn't really any kind of order, but the first would be a handful of movies that I thought I'd highlight is Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool. The movie Past Lives was a highlight. The horror movie from New Zealand, Talk to Me. Another movie, Godzilla Minus One, the prequel to the original Godzilla. Highly recommend that movie. If you're not a Godzilla fan, it's worth seeing anyway. It brings an emotional, personal touch to the original Godzilla and putting you in some moments that seemed kind of cheesy in the original 50s version, but putting a human connection to it, like when Godzilla's holding the train and you're finally inside the train as one of our characters is holding on for dear life. The other movie is Bottoms. Another highlight I loved a lot, the movie Holdovers, a tribute, I thought, to Hal Ashby movies. And then non-related to movies, but Ethel Cain's performance at Coachella. YouTube streams the Coachella performances over those weekends, so I watched it on YouTube. But yeah, definitely worth checking out Coachella when they stream it. But Ethel Cain's performance this past year, you can find clips of it on YouTube, but the actual official performance is not on there. But just like cell phone footage. Then I went to the Spotlight in Detroit and saw Egyptian Lover live. That was an incredible DJ set, 80s throwback.
I love the way you talk, little Detroit freak. I really dig the way you kiss. Ain't ashamed, mama. I wish I could resist you, little Detroit freak. Detroit freak.
Check out his music. Cinema Detroit put up a pop-up outdoor screening over the summer, and I saw 10 Things I Hate About You and Moonstruck, and Moonstruck was on a full moon that night. And then my final for the year was a book that I helped write, was Moonlight Marquee, a werewolf film encyclopedia. That's available on Amazon. It encapsulates the entire film history of werewolf movies, features interviews and details about werewolf movies, and highly recommend checking out Moonlight Marquee, the werewolf film encyclopedia. So review, we'll go over Brandon Cronenberg's Infinity Pool, Past Lives, Talk to Me, Godzilla Minus One, Bottoms, The Holdovers, Ethel Cain's performance at Coachella, Egyptian Lover I saw live at the Spotlight, Cinema Detroit's pop-up outdoor screenings of 10 Things I Hate About You and Moonstruck. And the final was Moonlight Marquee, a werewolf film encyclopedia, a book that I helped co-write with a bunch of other writers. Up next is my interview with Paul Bunnell, the director of The Ghastly Love of Johnny X.
Ready to start off the interview. If you want to describe yourself first.
Sure, why not? I am a human from the planet Earth, and I've come down to bring good joy and tidings to all who enjoy motion pictures. And, remember, movies are your best entertainment. I wanted to make that perfectly clear. But I'm just a guy, I describe myself really as being kind of a determined person. Mm. And, I'm just an average guy that has a love for movies. And ever since I was a young kid, I wanted to make movies.
Where does that passion come from? I mean, you worked on a movie for over 10 years. That was one of my questions is like, how do you got to stick with it. Mm-hmm. A lot of movies are about passion and creativity and being a go-getter. So,
well, I just started making the movie because it had been a long time since I made my previous film, That Little Monster. And I thought, I got to get some footage in the can, or what am I doing here? So I got a couple of friends together that can get, we took 35 millimeter cameras. He had an intervalometer. a custom rig, and we went out to the desert where
That was
incidentally I previously worked in a movie called Planet of the Apes, and I know you'll probably ask me about that.
and
I
that was
knew
in
about this-
2002. That time.
Right. Well, we made that movie in 2000 to 2001. And I knew about this location. I thought, wow, this is amazing. Anyway, it's called the Trona Pinnacles, and it's in the Ridgecrest, California area. Anyway, we went out there, and I wanted to shoot some tests. I thought, let's just put some film in the camera. And that was 2002, correct, when I shot Johnny X, that opening footage, which does not appear in the broadcast version, by the way. So if you see the movie on Creature Features or Cinema Insomnia, I don't believe you see any of that opening footage in those shows. So we shot the movie in 2002. We started shooting, and then I finished up the script. And in 2004, we got the actors together and we started shooting. And that went well until we ran out of money. And I'm like, wow, I've got to finish this movie. This just can't be, it turned out to be more expensive than I thought, because I'd only done like 16 millimeter prior to that. And 35 millimeter, you got to hire a crew, and you got to have people that know what they're doing, and you can't mess around. So this was my big ambitious project, and then I ran out of money, and we just waited and waited and waited and waited. And 6 years later, just about when I was ready to call it quits and say, this may never, ever happen, I did have a friend that stepped up and said, Paul, I'm in a position to be able to help you. And my friend Mark Willoughby was that person, and he helped me, and he gave me the money on a handshake deal, and we finished the movie. I mean, it was amazing. It was really a blessing. So I saved face because, I told everyone I was, I didn't want to make the movie for nothing. I did all this work. I shot a third of the film. And every year that goes by, the actors are getting older. My sensibilities are changing a little bit. Am I still going to make the same movie? And it turned out to be a slightly different movie than what I originally set out to do. But the script had changed during the course of those 6 years. But we were locked in to that footage that we already shot. So any changes that were made had to be made revolving around the pre-existing footage. So it was interesting. It was like kind of doing a jigsaw puzzle. You're trying to improve the thing, but you're locked into things that you can't really redo, or, toss out the footage, and then you have to end up shooting more footage. So anyway, that's kind of the genesis. That's sort of the story behind the trial and tribulation of making the film. But I knocked on every door. I thought, well, we can get the money. I cut together a production teaser. We can get the money to finish this thing. It never happened. And I really was so discouraged. I couldn't believe that no one would invest. I thought, well, this is a surefire thing. This is great. It's got the retro thing in there. It's got, some old time actors, some newer people, some cult actors. I thought I was throwing in everything but the kitchen sink. Mm-hmm. If I had only thrown in the kitchen sink, maybe that would have worked quicker. But anyhow, So we did it. And it was just one of those tenacity things. I stuck with it. I believed in it. Maybe I manifested it. I don't know. I had a friend that said, Paul, I know how you got your movie made. I'm like, how did I do? He said, you manifested it. You saw it. You believed it. And I think there's something to that. I never believed that I wouldn't finish the film. And, 6 years is an awful lot. I mean, that's a long time to wonder. You've got this footage sitting in a can, and it's like, am I ever going to be able to finish this movie? And it was kind of almost like embarrassing. I'm like, well, I've told everyone I'm making the movie. They've seen clips of the movie, but I can't finish the darn thing, And I wanted to finish it right. I didn't want to shoot it on video or digital. I didn't want to shoot it in color. I didn't want to have to recast it or anything. So, just everything fell into place in the 11th hour. There was a godsend, and we got this thing finished by the skin of our teeth. And that's why I have skinny teeth today.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry for the long answer, but that's how kind of like that was what happened. And yes, it was. I would never recommend making a movie this way, But it's the determination of wanting to get something done and seeing it through. Because a lot of people, they start films or projects, and for one reason or the other, they either lose interest, or they don't have enough money to finish the thing, you know. But, you know, I really was determined to finish it the way I started out, making a 35 millimeter film, which in 2002, when I started shooting those initial shots in the desert, that was the way to shoot a movie. By the time we finished it in post in 2011, when it was all wrapped up, everything had been kind of converting to digital, you know. But I was proud and happy because I'm a film guy anyway. So I was proud and happy to have made a film on 35 millimeter. As a matter of fact, I'm shooting another movie. I'm going backwards just a little bit, and we're shooting on Super 16.
Oh, nice.
Anamorphic. So I'm shooting a movie in a couple of months. But, you know, but this is the thing, you know, always stick to your guns and stay true to who you are as an artist. And if you can do it, and you believe in yourself and you stick with it, you will make it one way or the other. That's my advice. So it's been great chatting with you, Tyler. Thank you so much
great.
for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you later. I gotta go now.
Okay,
bye. Wait a minute. There's more. There's more.
Yeah,
there's
we're
more?
still going. Yeah.
Okay, there's more.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
So so in 1997, what was the original concept for Johnny X? I mean, what kind of sparked? I believe that's when you kind of had the kernels of.
In what year did you say?
97.
Wow, you kind of did your research. Well, you know, I had finished That Little Monster in 1994, and I was thinking of another movie. I was developing a script called God Bless Tiny Tim, which is a biopic about Tiny Tim. And I still say it's only a matter of time before someone out there is going to figure out, oh my goodness, this would make an amazing biopic on the life and times of Tiny Tim, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'd spent a lot of time on that, and I'd spoken to some industry professionals like Joe Dante, who at the time wanted to produce it. And, you know, I had other people interested, but it went nowhere, of course. And eventually I thought, well, I got to make another movie. So I came up with something kind of fun and unique, an idea that I had been toying around with. I thought of the title Teenagers from Outer Space. And I thought, wouldn't that be kind of fun to do one of those 1950s kind of things where the teenagers are really like, you know, 30 years old or 25 to 30 years old actors playing teenagers, you know, and kind of do a riff on that. And I had a dark kind of a, you know, idea for the movie. And it turned out that when my dad passed away in 2002, I ended up changing it from this dark movie to a fun, light, and especially after 9/11 and all the things that happened, I thought, you know, people want escapist entertainment and something fun and light. I don't believe I'm wimping out, but I believe I'm doing something that's more accessible to everyone than as opposed to a core group of hardcore horror enthusiasts, you know? So I ended up doing The Ghastly Love of Johnny X and kind of morphed into a musical fantasy film. And, you know, it's kind of a period piece, but it isn't. You know, it's a 50s, 60s, 70s kind of inspired thing, but it really takes place in contemporary times with those sensibilities. You know, it's not a true period piece. People think, oh, because there's period cars and such, that it's a 50s, but it isn't, you know. But again, I really shouldn't even have to explain it because I think sometimes it's better not to explain one's intentions or work and let the audience interpret it the way they want, you know, because maybe my explanation will turn out to be quite boring compared to what they thought. It's like, oh, is that what he had in mind? Well, in that case, you know, it's not as good as I thought. But yes.
What movies inspired?
A long time.
Yeah. What movies inspired Johnny X? Were there certain movies they had kind of in mind, like Russ Meyer type movies, or
you know, I wish that I followed more of the Russ Meyer thing. You know, honestly, I guess I was really just doing myself. I have to admit, you know, that I grew up on Disney movies, and hey, you have The Son of Flubber behind you, which was a fine movie, by the way, and Tommy Kirk.
Because when people think of the Flubber movies, they think of Son of Flubber. They don't think of The Absent-Minded Professor. They kind of
because Flubber is the title, see?
Now, there's more fun in the second one than the...
There's some funny bits in Son of Flubber. I mean, you've got Paul Lynde in that movie, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. But I love Son of Flubber. And, of course, The Absent-Minded Professor. Those are really fun movies. I was inspired by mainly Disney films, and I never really want to do anything too ugly. I want to do suggestiveness. I love to have fun with double entendres and, a little hint at sexuality and that sort of thing. But when it boils right down to it, because me, the way I am in real life, I mean, I'm just not that kind of a person, So, and I always feel weird about going to a movie, and like when I was a kid, and if I'd go see an R-rated movie with one of my parents or someone, it's like I feel embarrassed, and they cover your eyes, I just want a movie that you can show to anyone, and it's not necessarily going to offend or embarrass the parent or guardian that's taking the young person. I have a lot of young fans, but I'm not catering to kids at all. Really, there's a lot of grown-up stuff in Johnny X, but I think it might go over the heads of some of the people, younger people watching it, but it's totally accessible. So the wholesome, it's not a wholesome movie, but it is in a way, I mean, if you think about it, there's nothing in The Ghastly Love of Johnny X that is offensive. I mean, there's no nudity, I don't believe there's any swear words in there, but again, I'm no prude. I mean, I would have loved to have done. It's like if I had gone for the gusto, I could have made a Russ Myers. I could have made something what people expect, like a certain fan base would expect the Ghastly Love of Johnny X to be. And I think I might have disappointed people that come into it going, well, this had everything. If this had only had this rockabilly style music, and I get criticized for the kind of songs and the music and the singing. It's like, now, wait a minute, these actors are carrying a tune. These songs are not bad. They're clever songs. What is wrong with the songs, Tyler? What is wrong with the songs?
Nothing's wrong. I was listening to the CD the other day in my car.
I mean, I sent you the CD. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did.
You didn't have it before, right?
I did not.
Okay. It's a really good score by Eagle Plum, and the songs are really good by Scott Martin. Now, I asked for your theatrical show tune type, old school movie musical type songs. If I had gone with Eagle Plum doing the songs, it would have been a little more rockabilly and period. And I really would have hit home with some of that hardcore, nitty gritty stuff. Now, I sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, but you know what? I never question after the fact. The movie is done, and it's what I wanted to do at the time. And I feel good about it because, it's a little different.
As long as you made a choice, that's all that matters.
It's a choice.
Some filmmakers don't make a choice or decision, and then you get mild movies.
I totally knew what I wanted, Tyler, and that's the thing. I was never unclear about what direction I wanted to go with the film. And I honestly, that's the one movie that I had complete creative control on. So anything that doesn't work is my fault. And anything that does work is my fault. So,
Yeah.
But
that's what makes it
fun making it. I'm just lucky.
A very unique movie. It has a perspective. It has choices with the wardrobe, the set design, the cars, the music, everything. Yeah. It's a filmmaker's movie, and we don't get to see a lot of those movies because there's always somebody else or something. There's always compromises, even if they're we got to have this in it, we got to have that, and you're like, well, that doesn't really fit this mishmash collage of things that you like. And
we had an extremely limited budget. Okay, we were very lucky. We got to shoot on 35 millimeter. But the scope of the project was way more ambitious than the money that we had. And we did go higher than the budget that we thought we were going to spend. But, we got everything in. We had a lot of freebies, a lot of, we were getting favors. But I couldn't make that movie today for the budget that I had 10, 12 years ago. But, we were just lucky. And you know what? I look at that film, and if there's one thing, there's a lot of things I wish I could redo. But the one thing I'm proud of is the way the film looks. I think it's worthy of, there is some beautiful cinematography in that film. And it was shot in such a way that, we used the black and white plus X negative, and we printed on 35 millimeter black and white film. And if you ever see any video copy floating around out there, whether it's on Creature Features or Cinema Insomnia, or when it was on Netflix, or the theatrical DVD, that particular transfer was made from a 35 millimeter positive print. We didn't even go from the negative. So you can imagine if they were to redo the thing today and scan the camera negative at 4K, because that's not even a 4K scan, that thing would look gorgeous. I mean, I dare someone out there in the video world to contact me and say, hey, let's do a 4K scan of the camera negative, because I'm telling you, that thing will look gorgeous. It really will. It really will.
I remember you talking about they're making the artist, the Oscar-winning artist, at the same time and need to use their tail ends or something like that, right?
Well, here's the story. Originally they were going to shoot it on black and white. This is what I've been told. And, they were going to shoot it on black and white, but we got all the film because Kodak told me this. They said, well, the artist was looking for black and white film, but they saw there wasn't enough of the plus X film. And they could have used the double X, the tri-X or whatever you call it, double X, I think in 35. But they ended up shooting on color 35 millimeter and just doing a digital intermediate and converting it over to black and white. So yes, it looked fine, but it really isn't the real deal. Yeah. It's not true, pure cinematic 35 millimeter black and white. No, it is not. It's digitally manipulated.
Take the Oscar away. Take it away.
Oh, well, hey, but it's still a really, really good movie. And it's funny because, they put a lot of money behind the marketing of that film. And, I think if they hadn't, it's so weird because black and white films, I've never had any luck with getting a foreign, outside of North America distribution on the film. Because they just won't touch black and white unless, well, not even if you're Woody Allen anymore. But in the old days, you had to be Woody Allen or you had to be Martin Scorsese or somebody like that, or with the money that the Weinsteins had to push that movie. I mean, come on, a black and white, silent, one, square, 1:37 aspect ratio film. I mean, who in the heck is gonna? And it wins Best Picture the same year that the Ghastly Love of Johnny X comes out, but nobody, it's like, oh, well, that's a black and white movie. Nobody cares. But, I guess in hindsight, you can always do things better. We were on a very, very tight budget and I didn't have any money for advertising, very, very little. So, we were able to basically take what we had and we had a word of mouth campaign and so on. But, we got a lot of views on Netflix. They had it for a full year. And so it was available on Netflix, which is a pretty good deal, pretty big deal.
And where can you watch it right now? Is it available to purchase?
It could be watched in my garage, for a quarter.
I think tomorrow there's a garage screening.
Right, yeah, tomorrow we've got hey, they just put it out on a Super 8. You're a film guy, right, Tyler?
Yeah.
They just put it out on a Super 8 sound digest print. I licensed it to a guy named Dave Baker. And Dave Films puts out. Are you familiar with Super 8 digest prints?
I knew Super 8 films like the old reels.
This is a Super 8 digest print. You can get a 30-minute print of the Ghastly Love of Johnny X right now from Dave Films with a magnetic sound stripe. A beautiful polyester print. For I think they're charging $375, but it's basically a little bit over their cost. They're making very little money. That's for a print. So they put it out on digest, which is a lot of fun. And
I've seen Star Wars in Super 8. That's a quick watch. Where it's I
had that.
It's when it was shortest. It's like Death Star, Luke. Yep. It blows up. It's like the quickest summary of Star Wars you can like.
But do you know that back when because I collected those back when they were new, when Star Wars was new, and they put that out. And that was so cool to have like a film of Star Wars, even those little clips, because there was no VHS then. You couldn't buy the film. You couldn't get it any other way. You had to go to the movie theater still to see it. But man, I would play that on Halloween in my front yard. And people were like, how did you get this? I'm like, well, it's available, But okay, how do you see the Ghastly Love of Johnny X?
Yes.
Well, you could see it right now. The most current form is I did 2 shows this year. The first one was Creature Features, and I don't know if you're familiar with his show, but he does a great show, and they interviewed me. I'm on his program, and that's more of a serious show, but it's fun. It's shot at the Poulter Mansion, and it's a really cool thing. And that's on YouTube and miscellaneous, I guess, channels that they put it on, and on his subscription page. But it's Creature Features on YouTube. But the most current version is on the expanded episode of Cinema Insomnia with Mr. Lobo, where I actually get married.
It's wild at a drive-in.
I am not kidding. That was a real marriage, and Mr. Lobo married us at Shankweiler's Drive-In, which is
the oldest
world's
drive-in.
Oldest drive-in.
Yeah.
And I got married to my beautiful wife, Claudia, and we had a lot of fun. Mr. Lobo wrote these wraparounds, a little storyline where, I had to get married to stay on the planet. Did you see it by any chance?
I need to watch. I helped. I paid a little bit to.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yeah. Thank you, Tyler, for being an associate producer.
Yes, because I knew you, and I've known Mr. Lobo and Cinema Insomnia, the show, since high school.
Wow.
In Toledo, Ohio, it would appear as before channels being in the limitless channels, it would just appear at channel 67 Saturday night.
It's great.
It was like a blank channel up until this. It would just turn on.
Right.
I'm like, what is this show? And
you're not dreaming. It's Cinema Insomnia.
And I'm like, one night the Screaming Skull was just on at channel 67 when I was growing up, and that's how I discovered the show. And then one day it wasn't there anymore. It played, it was on this Buckeye cable system, was their cable company, and I saw a couple. I would stay, I was in high school, just stay up late, skip watching Saturday Night Live, and watch Cinema Insomnia, and have known Mr. Lobo and that show for a while. And then when I saw that somehow you got to know him, and I was on there, I'm like, I gotta help. This episode.
It's an epic show. I mean, it's like 3 hours long. I mean, it's, because the movie is 90 minutes, and then he does commercials and the wraparounds and the storyline with me having to go back to my home planet. Anyway, they're putting together a Blu-ray. It's never been on Blu-ray before. So I've given him the broadcast version. If you ever had the DVD, that's the full 106-minute theatrical cut. But I figured for streaming purposes, I wanted to trim it by about 15 minutes. So it's about 91 minutes, and it's a little tighter, but it's still the same movie. And that's the version that's coming out on Blu-ray. So the theatrical cut is still available for anyone that might want to be interested in releasing that. But so yeah, I mean, you could see it on Cinema Insomnia. I don't know, you might find the website because he's posted it. It's going to be on YouTube. I just got word from them today. They're doing some fixes. It's going to be even better, the final version. They've got to put in the 3D effects because the entire concert scene is going to be in Ghastly scope.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have my Ghastly scope glasses right here. So I've been waiting. These are the Ghastly scope glasses that Mr. Lobo will give out. And, I mean, sometimes, it makes me a little angry, and other times I'm feeling rather blue. But either way you look at it, you will see it in Ghastly scope, because that's what we're all about. Yes. Okay. Cool. Enough of that. Look, thank you again for being part of that. I'll tell you, we had so much fun in Pennsylvania, and Mr. Lobo, of course, I met him at Blobfest 2015. And he, I think, suggested to run the Ghastly Love of Johnny X at the Colonial Theater, and they did during Blobfest on 35 millimeter in the theater where The Blob was filmed with Steve.
Yes.
And have you ever been to Blobfest?
I want to go.
It's a lot of fun.
I want to go to Blobfest. Yes.
But anyway, maybe we'll meet.
They recreate the chase. They take a picture of people running out of the theater like they did in the movie, and they have the blow
and
up.
I did that.
I mean, I want to go. Yeah.
It's great. So yeah, Blobfest. And so in 2015, and then Lobo and I had talked. He had asked me about running Johnny X on his show, but at that time, Strand Releasing still had the rights, and those rights finally expired I had a 10-year contract with them. So after the rights expired, I started saying, hey, I got creature features, to play the film, and then I took it to Cinema Insomnia, and we plan to do that little monster on Cinema Insomnia at some point in the future. But this Johnny X episode was just so much fun because I suggested him. I said, "Hey, how would you feel if I got married on your show? Would that hurt your feelings? Would that if we did that?"
Yeah,
jokingly. And he said, "Wow, that would be pretty cool, And getting married at the drive-in, no one had ever been married at Shankweiler's drive-in before. I understand there have been a few proposals, but never a marriage. So we were the first ones. And they're going to run the movie, the whole Cinema Insomnia episode at Shankweiler's. So that's my understanding. So it'll be fun. But it's fun to have made a movie that that a lot of people like. Some people don't like it. Fair enough. Look, some people don't like Gone with the Wind or The Wizard of Oz. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you make a movie that everybody likes, it seems a little odd.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
But, there's some movies that are just more beloved than others. But, The Ghastly Love of Johnny X, it's one of those films that still needs to kind of be discovered because people just don't really see it. But with the help of Creature Features and Cinema Insomnia this year, it's getting way more eyeballs on the film. So
what kind of preparation do you storyboard when you work on your movies, or
no? It's funny, my DP was Francisco Bulgarelli, who's also DPing the next movie I'm working on. And I had very minimal storyboards because I see everything in my head, in my mind, and I write it out on paper for my shot list that I give them every day. And that's generally how I work. But for a few sequences, I wanted it to be a little more specific. So always for certain sequences, I'll have limited storyboards. I'll bring someone in to do that for me. Just to kind of show what we're going to kind of do, But for the most part, I pre-visualize it in my mind, and I have an idea based on a shot list of how I want to shoot it. And, it's more of a surprise to them. I go over it with them, but, it's like, okay, here's what we're doing today. Let's see how many of these songs we can get. For the songs, I brought in a choreographer, and she did really good work. And she choreographed the dance, the musical numbers. And then I watched the choreography, and I figured out how to shoot it, So actually, she did half of my work for me. She did the blocking / choreography, and I just went in with my camera and I figured out how to shoot it, and that was easy because working with playback, it's like most of your work's already done. So the musical numbers for me were actually the easier things to film than just working with the actors and getting all those people in the same frame at the same time, and that kind of thing. But there were a lot of challenges to the film, and there were a lot of things. Oh my goodness. There were so many reasons why this film should never have gotten completed. But I overcame them, and it's like I kept being challenged. It's like the universe was saying, are you sure you want to make this movie? Are you sure you want to finish this thing? I don't know what it was about it, but we were just plagued with so many hardships and challenges, but overcame them all and made the movie. And not to brag, I'm not bragging, but I'm just not to.
You can brag. This is the brag. No. This is the brag portion of the movie.
Well,
the
and I want everyone to know, not that it matters, but I did not get paid. I did. My friends were getting paid, because we had to pay. But I would have felt guilty because my friend came in. First of all, the money was initially my money, for the initial footage. And then when my friend Mark Willoughby came in, it's like, wow, you're giving me this money. Well, I would have felt guilty taking a salary to do the movie. So I just said, no, I'm not going to take any money. Thank you. You're making my dreams come true. So let's just make this movie. But it was a lot of work. And, I basically, I did all the labor for free. And, I did the work of like 20 people. But so I wasn't in it for the money. It was completely a passion project. And, to make up for the errors of my ways, I really do have another movie that I plan to make. not the one that's upcoming, but which is another thing. But Rocket Girl is one that I had written and planned, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to get it going. That is the next Johnny X, but the new and improved version without the musical numbers. So, we'll see. We'll see.
So what's the movie you're shooting on Super 16? What's that
well,
project?
I'm starting a picture that I was hired to direct by a friend of mine. So I get some limited, I still get creative input. And it's called A Blind Bargain. And it is a movie that's happening pretty quickly. We aim to be shooting in about 2 months from now. Because all the SAG actors just came back, and we're getting some name actors. I can't say who at this moment, but we're getting some recognizable name actors, and their schedules are getting booked up. So we have to get them quick. So we have to start shooting in basically in 2 months before they get booked on big projects.
What kind of skills does a director need to have to interact with actors? What would you say?
Well,
how do you engage with an actor? Because it's kind of a individual basis of you have to kind of understand that person's uniqueness and how not everybody's the same. So you kind of have to kind of know how they work and how that person works and how that person works.
I'm an actor too, but I don't have any desire to be. I mean, I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild, but I take little roles for fun, but I understand, what actors, for the most part, I understand what goes through their heads, So what you have to be a good director on a movie project like what I'm doing is you have to have a lot of stamina. That's number one. You have to have a lot of energy and stamina to get through the day, let alone you have got to be able to answer hundreds of questions from different people. You have to be able to juggle and balance. And you just need to remain focused, and you have to come to the set prepared, or else you'll lose the respect of your cast and crew. I mean, if you don't know what the heck you're doing, they'll call you out. They'll rebel or something, But you have to know what you want. It's a good idea to know what you want. It's okay to be a little nervous. Everybody gets a little nervous, but once you get into the flow of things, just come to the set prepared, get plenty of rest. Try to get plenty of rest so you can keep your stamina up, and a good pair of shoes. That's important. Now, I'm not one of these directors that sits back on his chair and directs from a TV monitor. Yes, there are monitors there, but
I heard you directed from a limo. No, that wasn't you. No.
Well, that was the other me. No.
No. Hitchcock would direct. Remember, I heard the story. Hitchcock was so bored on set, and he would just sit in a limo and direct. Wave his hand from a.
Well, he did all of his planning already, so he pre-visualized the movie. It's like the movie's already made in my head. Now I have to do the boring part of the actual physical work. I'm guessing he didn't have quite the stamina. I mean, he
wasn't wearing shoes. That's what it was.
He needed better shoes, right? He always dressed in a nice suit and everything. But with me,
I'm just joking. Yeah.
No. But with me, the best part for me, the best part is being on the set, because that's where the magic happens. That's where you're capturing the images. That's where you can have like a happy accident, like something that just magically comes together, or an actor comes up with an idea or whatnot. But I really excel in doing the audio, the sound. I really enjoy doing post-production sound. I think if I hadn't gotten directly into filmmaking, I would have been, if I was staying in the arts, I would have worked with sound design. We had a very good sound team on Johnny X. We did the work in Glendale at a place that does a lot of good movies, and he was recommended by Reggie Bannister because his name is Paul Ratajak, and Paul worked with on the original Phantasm. So Reggie was like, "Hey man, I got this friend, man. He worked on Phantasm. It's like he's got a studio in Glendale. Check it out, dude." So I went over there, and sure enough, he has this THX certified mixing stage and everything. So the sound was really top notch in Johnny X, if you notice.
Anything that stood out to you sound design wise that you wanted to highlight that in that process that you're like, anything that I did that I didn't do? That we should be listening to while we watch the movie that you're like, oh, this sound or that flourish or anything.
I mean, anything I want to point out or anything I wasn't happy.
Yeah, anything you want to point out to the viewer as they're watching it.
Well,
like, oh,
I mean, we didn't just use off the rack sound effects. We did in a few cases, but for example, the resurrection suit, it kind of almost sounds like a weird, there's a high pitched, almost like a radio tuning going, that was something that we came up with live. And we had, I don't remember now, it was some kind of a radio device, and we would change the pitch so that when the gloves were closed, it's almost like almost like a theremin type thing. But that's kind of cool. That was a custom sound effect. And so I'm very picky about sound. As a matter of fact, the first Foley guy, who was a very good guy, I think our personalities didn't click. But see, I was in the studio for every single Foley, like a coffee cup, lifts or footsteps. And man, because that's what I used to do, right? So I'm like, oh no, I don't like that. And so we were clashing. So I had to get a different guy. And the guy I ended up getting was a real nice guy. And he was the guy that did, his name was Vince, I believe. And he did all the Foleying for like the SpongeBob, SquarePants. And he said, here's a little wheel that I use for SpongeBob. Like, oh, that's cool. So we use little things. And so we clicked quite well. But see, they're not used to having the director sitting through the Foley sessions. The sound guys are like, here's your, we're delivering these to you. Here it is. Why would a director want to sit in for every single little nuance? But I did. You see, I sat and I hate to say it, but I kind of micromanaged every aspect of the film that I felt was important to me, that I wanted to get right, because I wasn't about to let any quality control slip by. I wanted to put on the best show possible. We had a small amount of money, a decent amount, but it was still small. And I wanted everything to be good. And I feel as though I made a quality production. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. I don't like a lot of movies. However, when I don't like a movie, I don't go on talking about, oh, this was the worst thing. I'll never get that time back again. Those 2 hours. Hey, we won't get any time back. You can watch your favorite movie and you won't get that time back either. But the thing is that time moves forward, right?
What is your favorite movie?
Well, I have a lot of favorite movies, but in no particular order. I'll just list one of my favorites because it's so fun. And it's called, I know you know it, it's a mad, 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 mad world.
Oh yeah, perfect movie.
Directed by Mr. Stanley Kramer in 1963, which is like the same age I am. I just hate to admit it. But it's really a wonderful film. And it's got everything. It's got my sensibility in it. And I used to have my own 35 millimeter IB Tech print. So that's how much I love this film. And then
it's the rare long form comedy. Comedies typically don't work past an hour and 45 minutes.
I love the scope and the size of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Even the title is, it's a big title, right? So I like movies where there's a challenge in at least making the film. And that's why there's another movie I like called, maybe you've never heard of it. It's called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Have you heard of that film?
No, I haven't heard that one before.
Well, there was a guy by the name of Walt Disney. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, but Walt Disney made this movie. And at the time when he made it back in the 30s, they started production in like 1934. They got it released in 37. But, this was a big deal because you have to remember at that time, no one had ever done a full-length animated feature. So here's a guy that had been successful making short films, and then he risks his very comfortable empire of Mickey Mouse, and he put all their money on the line, and he took a gamble. And this is what I love about people like Walt Disney and someone that tries to do something that's never been done. And that's what I thought I was doing with Johnny. Actually, I took a gamble. For better or worse, the film is what it is. It didn't turn out to be Snow White, but you know what? People that take risks, those are my role models, because when you follow your heart and you follow your dreams and you try not to sell out, what Walt did, and he was lucky. He knew what he was doing. I mean, he didn't know what he was doing, but he believed it would work, and it did. So Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, if you look at it, it's really a wonderful movie. And when it came out, in 37, it was a big deal, because it was a full-length animated feature in Technicolor. And it was just really, it works on every level. So I recommend that. That's a movie that I love. And not only that, it's the very first movie I ever saw in a movie theater when I was a little kid. back when I was like 4 years old, my first theatrical film. So there you go.
Do you remember what theater you saw it at?
I saw it in North Hollywood at the El Portal Theater. And the year was 1967. And it was the 1967 re-release. And that was my first experience of seeing a movie. And shortly thereafter, I went to the Chinese theater in Hollywood, and my mom took me to see The Jungle Book. So you see, the first two movies I saw were Disney movies. Yeah. And The Jungle Book is my first brand new movie, but my first actual movie was Snow White. But anyway, so these are films that in a weird sort of way have influenced me in my subconscious. That's why I can never really truly make a film that's just, you know, like a Russ Meyer type thing. You know, David Lynch is my favorite living director, and yes. Alfred Hitchcock is my favorite director who's no longer living.
Yes.
Those are my I mean, these are people that I greatly admired. I loved Lynch's artistic sensibilities and what he does with experimentation, and he puts himself out there and he just does his art. He doesn't sell out. That's the great thing about David Lynch. He does what he does. Even if it's not going to make a lot of money, he'll still do it.
And there's nobody like him that exists, only him. When you see people try to copy him, they don't understand.
They don't really get it, you know?
You don't know. And
there's a great new documentary called Lynch Oz. Have you seen it?
Yeah, we showed it here. I didn't watch it yet.
Oh, it's really wonderful. I saw it on the Criterion channel, and it's really wonderful. So I recommend that documentary. But the David Lynch, you know, I mean, I met him several times, and I was actually on the set of Wild at Heart, and I watched him directing. Actually,
what was
scenes that didn't even make the final cut.
What were you part of? Were you just there, or were you helping along?
Well, at the time, my friend was the production accountant for Wild at Heart, an old friend of mine. He said, "Hey, they're shooting over there. Go on the set. I'll get you on the set." I'm like, this is fantastic. I love David Lynch. And so I got on the set over in Pasadena at the Green Manor Hotel or someplace where they were shooting all these scenes, and I met Harry Dean Stanton and
legend.
And, you know, he was there doing scenes. I have photos that I took with David Lynch and myself and Harry Dean. And, you know, I saw Dave, and when they were on their lunch break, the camera was sitting there and there was nobody around, and David Lynch's director's chair was there. And I was with my friend, and we only had at that time, this was like late 80s, right? Yeah. So we had a little film cameras, and I said, take a picture of me sitting on David Lynch's director's chair. And I kid you not, I have a picture of me sitting on David Lynch's chair. But anyway, so later I helped David with some stuff, and he sent me a really cool like piece of art that he did, and he signed it and said, thanks for your help. I love David Lynch. But anyway,
what was his acting style on? So what did you observe with him on that movie? Do you remember any kind of
with David Lynch?
How he would direct.
Well, I saw him direct a scene that was not in the final cut. There were two things. I actually had video that he shot of a game show that was supposed to be on the TV that Harry Dean Stanton was watching. And it was a weird, you know, tell us your secret. And it was some abstract thing. So the tape got to me through the production accountant. I don't know. He said, hey, this tape is in the office. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah. And years later, I contacted David, and I said, David, I have this thing you shot for Wild at Heart. He goes, would you like to have it back? He goes, you bet. And, you know, he was, you bet, you know, who are you? How do I do that? And anyway, so I sent it to him, and he was so grateful. He sent me this piece of art. But when he was on the set directing in Pasadena, I just remember there was a scene that isn't in the final cut where these people are just walking through the lobby of the hotel, and the girl just turns to the guy yelling, and she says, I said no. You know, I mean, it was just some weird, and he's like, that was great, you know, thumbs up. And that was pretty much David. You know, he's real direct. He knows what he wants, and he has a way of coaxing it out of you without necessarily giving you too much direction. But, you know, I only watched the very short, there was a Diane Lane, right? Was that her name?
Yeah.
Was it Diane Lane? Who's Laura Dern's mother? That was Diane Lane, right? Or was it Diane Baker? How am I getting these names? Anyway, Diane.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's Lane. Well, anyhow, Diane, Laura Dern's mother, who starred in Wild at Heart, she played her in the movie. Okay. And anyhow, so she was there doing scenes with Harry Dean Stanton, and they were at the hotel. So it was really cool. So that was my little experience being on a David Lynch set. But other than that, gosh, what were we talking about, Tyler? We were talking about all kinds of things.
I wanted to kind of talk about favorite movies in that moment, talk about directing.
Well, there's another movie that I didn't mention that had a big influence on me for the Ghastly Love of Johnny X. And believe it or not, Snow White was actually one of them, and because at the end of Snow White, you recall there's a scene where the dwarfs go up and with the witch, with the wicked witch, and they're fighting her on the rocks. Remember the rocks?
Yeah,
and they push, and she ends up trying to kill him with this boulder, but she falls back.
Yeah.
Well, there's this whole scene in Johnny X on the rocks. And, they're having this. So that was kind of inspired. And there's another scene that I ripped off from the Jungle Book, line for line, intentionally. There's dialogue. There's a scene. I don't know if you.
It's homage. You're homage.
You're right, exactly. But then, okay, there's a movie that you know and love, I'm sure, as well. It's called Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And I love that movie. And that's a movie I would recommend. One of my favorites. I think if I have to be honest with myself, I have seen that film more than any other movie I've ever watched, repeatedly. I've seen probably Phantom of the Paradise uncountable times because I used to have my own film print. I used to have, I saw it in the movie theater so many times. So anyway, that movie resonated with me, which is why I wanted Paul Williams in Johnny X. And originally Paul had agreed to play Mickey O'Flynn. Okay. But what happened was it took another couple of years to get the money. Paul became president of ASCAP and he wasn't able to do it. So he gave me a day playing the talk show host. His schedule wasn't working out. So I was lucky to get him in at all. But, so we got Paul in the film and I was thrilled beyond belief. Believe me, having Paul Williams in my movie was a big deal.
Yes.
And there were scenes in the concert scene of Johnny X that were inspired by the concert scene in Phantom and so on. I mean, that's about as far as it goes. But Phantom of the Paradise, I had to mention that one because it's one of my all-time favorites.
Or some of the scenes from that movie that stand out to you?
Phantom?
Yeah.
Well,
being a fan.
Well, there's so much good stuff in there with Brian De Palma. Okay, he did a split screen scene that he did many other times in other films. But so I had to have my split screen scene in Johnny X. So I did a split screen scene during the concert where I used two cameras. But the only difference is De Palma wouldn't cut, as far as I know, in a split screen. He'd maneuver one camera around and he'd do the other camera, and you'd be seeing the same thing from different points of view. I did do two different points of view on Johnny X, but then in the split screen, I'm cutting to the audience in one and I'm cutting back to something else in the other, but then we go back to the actual true split screen. But in Phantom of the Paradise, I love the opening scene where Winslow Leach, played by William Finley, is singing his song Faust, and he's trying to basically audition. He knows Swan is up there watching him, and he's pasting his, he hates the Juicy Fruits, which was the contemporary band. And he's just trying to get his music heard, and nobody's paying attention. And he's putting his heart and soul into this thing, and the camera's moving around him. And meanwhile, up, behind the scenes, you hear Swan having a chat with his road manager. And he's saying, basically, we want to, they're going to get this guy's music. And, the intent is to steal it and to crush this guy and to throw him away and just take the music. And just, this was the whole idea behind Faust and selling your soul to the devil and whatnot. But there are so many things. And then the girl, the aspect of the girl losing, like falling in love with the girl, and then but just being basically maimed, defamed. It's on the poster. He was mutilated, and Swan stole the girl he loved and stole his music. And it's kind of like the artist. I resonate with that film because being an artist and having your work taken away, or just it's just kind of like how the industry is a very harsh industry. And they were trying to say something about the music business during that time in 1974. But the film now looks like a cool little time capsule, you know. But at the time when I saw it, when it first came out, that film seemed high tech. I mean, those video cameras up there watching everything that was going on. And I mean, the humor, I was pretty young when the movie came out and I saw it. I think I was 11 or 12. And, you know, and seeing that thing seemed very grown up to me. You know, it was no Disney film.
Yeah.
Now it's tame and fun and funny. It was funny then too, but you know, it was kind of like, oh, they were talking about adult things, and I just love that movie. And I told this to Paul Williams. You know, we met and we went out to breakfast the first time we met, and he was so wonderful. And I just told him how much that movie meant to me, and he said that he had a similar experience with a movie that no one would ever hear of today. I'd have to think about it, but I can't remember at the moment the name of the movie. But he said he saw this film when he was a kid, and it inspired him to be a songwriter and an actor and to get into show business. And so that was his story. And he told me at the time, I'd never told this to anyone, you know, but I could think of the movie, but not right now. You have to call me in a couple of years.
Okay.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. And I saw the movie. I'm like, oh, it's interesting because it really. And he said he was right. It was a know-nothing little movie, but it inspired him. Phantom of the Paradise inspired me, you know, when I was of that certain age, and I just connected with the material. So, and
I think every movie has an audience. I mean, every movie, even if it takes time for that audience to find it. I mean, you can talk to anybody about any movie, and it's like this little the movie you don't even remember it, and they're like, oh, I love that movie, and you're like, that movie, like I even thought about that movie for ages. But every movie has its followers, their appreciation, and I think it's just some of the movies take time for those audience. I mean, everything to get.
I was just going to say that, Tyler. You know, that movie kind of was a flop when it first came out. It did not do good box office. Okay, but in Winnipeg, it found its fan base and it kind of grew from there. And then now it's considered, you know, I like this great cult movie. Everybody seems to love that movie. I wonder if, like Johnny X, even though it wasn't a studio film and it wasn't released like the way Phantom was by a well-known director, but I tend to see that more and more people are coming around and discovering my film. And maybe one day in the future, it might be more well-known and kind of like this thing, because with time, the further you get away from something, the film either loses it completely and it doesn't hold up, or it becomes this thing that just grows into something that's like, wow, you know, this is really cool. You know, this was not appreciated when it came out. This was like, nobody heard of this film, but now this is the coolest thing ever. So it's possible that Johnny X is on the road to that kind of a thing. I don't know. It would be nice. But, you know, I made the movie with the purest of intentions. I didn't get paid. I just wanted to make a fun film that was escapist entertainment that takes you out of the today, that takes you out of reality. That's what a movie should do, you know. You forget about your troubles and you're sitting in that dark theater. And I always design my movies for a theatrical experience, and you just enjoy it, you know. I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's only a movie, you know. I mean, it's not a Picasso, you know, it's just a movie, but they give you emotions and they should make you happy. And I've had many people tell me that they enjoy that movie, you know, and I've seen reviews where they love to like hate on it, you know. That's fine, you know. I mean, they're entitled to that, but I just wish that sometimes people wouldn't be so negative.
That as artists, we sometimes tend to look over the positive reviews as much as not as heavy as the negative reviews always hit harder. Even if there's only like a couple, we tend to always latch onto those more. Even if someone liked it, you're just like, you don't take those as heavy as the ones that are like.
Yeah. Well, Don Coscarelli said that to me once. He you know, Don, you know who Don is, right?
Yeah.
The Phantasm and all this Baba Hotel. He said, you know, the negative reviews really do hurt. No matter how far along you are in your career, it does hurt to read them, but you have to just kind of set it aside and just not let that get to you. And Don is a great guy. You know, he visited the set of Johnny X, and he was there because he's friends with Reggie Bannister. And I knew Don because I worked on Phantasm 3. I was a production assistant on that film. And Don comes to set. And he told me the story later. He says, well, you know, I came to the set to visit, And I was prepared, I've been on 100 sets and it's pretty boring. And I'm sitting there standing around. All of a sudden, you guys start shooting a film, rolling the camera, and the playback starts and the musical number kicks in. And he's like, it's a musical. And he's like, I'm having the greatest time. But Don said he thought it was so cool and so fun to see us shooting a musical because he'd never done a musical, So we were just having the time of our lives. So that was my little Don Coscarelli story. I love Don. I just think he's the greatest guy. And the fellow that designed all of his later posters for Bubba Hotep and John Dies at the End, he did the Johnny X poster, and he did my new poster for A Blind Bargain, which is coming soon.
What is that about?
Well, A Blind Bargain is a remake, believe it or not, of a lost Lon Chaney Sr. silent film called A Blind Bargain. So we're doing a contemporary remake of his film, although mine is still a period piece and it's set in 1970. But we're talking to some rather interesting people to be in it, and bigger names and lesser known names. But one of the names that we're talking to right now, I don't know for sure, but we had a very positive meeting with the star of a cult movie made in the early 60s, and you don't see her around much. But if we get her, it's the coolest thing ever. I like to work with people like in Johnny X, like I had Kevin McCarthy in there, and I had he to me and Paul Williams, and Kevin was great because it was his last movie, and I love working with these classic old time actors, and I really respect and admire these older actors. I work better with them, but so I'm looking forward. I'll tell you maybe later who we're talking to, but it's really cool, and so we're shooting on Super 16. It's going to be anamorphic, same DP as Johnny X, a slightly lower budget, but still enough to make the movie and to make it well. And
how many days is your shoot?
It's going to be, I believe it's 20 or 21 days.
Nice.
So it's tight, but it's doable. So.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's like a task over those 20 days, film is forever. Like, even though it seems like.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks, so it'll be a little over 4 weeks. Like 5-day weeks, Yeah. But so we start. The plan is to start shooting by mid-January, which means that you're literally catching me right at the beginning of my pre-production.
Awesome.
I'm still looking. We're crewing up. I need a line producer and all these people, But so we'll see how that goes. So it's a lot of work, but it's finally time to do this after Johnny X, and I've had some other things fall through the cracks, and Rocket Girl. I believe this will be the road to Rocket Girl by making this, and also this is interesting, and this is going to enable me to knock on wood, to join the DGA, the Directors Guild. I'll actually get in the Directors Guild because of this project I'm doing. So this is exciting news.
Yes, very exciting.
But let me just tell you, if I could be anyone right now, I would like to be you. Because, I've always had a dream to run and own and operate my own movie theater. When I was a kid, I had a movie theater in my garage. And we had a projection booth and a balcony and a snack bar in a garage. And I ran my Super 8 sound films, sometimes 16 millimeter films that we would borrow from Disney Studios through a connection. I always felt running a movie theater would be the coolest thing. I mean, I just wanted to say that you're a lucky guy.
Thank you.
Have that beautiful theater there in Michigan. And it was great when I came in the few times as a guest. To watch a movie. I remember seeing White Christmas at your theater. And, so thank you for keeping that, especially the repertory, the older films going at your theater, and for playing my movie there.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I still have a DCP. If you ever want to run Johnny X again,
We're playing it, the theater turns 95 in December.
Wow.
It originally opened December 11th, 1928. So
that is amazing.
We're turning 95.
What a beautiful thing. You look great for your age.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm like the Jack Nicholson in The Shining. I'm just the caretaker. I'm just worked on the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movie?
I did. I used to do some background work through the Screen Actors Guild, and Planet of the Apes was a job I got. And that I worked on other films like The Aviator, and one of my best, more recent, film school type educational things was getting to watch these big directors working. I worked on a Steven Spielberg film. I worked, so I would see how the big top directors directed, and it would always give me ideas about what I would and wouldn't do when I was going to direct a movie. Yeah. But when I worked on Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, that was a very demanding, physically demanding role for anyone working on that. I mean, because we were out in the desert, all the scenes where they're fighting, and I was one of the Red Army apes. And not only, was I in that sequence, but I was in the stuff at the studio. So I worked on that film for a couple of months, I think. And and every day, like when we had to go to the set in Trona, they kept us in a Motel 6, and we were buddied up with another background player. And I was had to get up at 3:30 in the morning every morning, get on a bus that took us to the set, and that was a 90-minute bus ride from there. And then so we just sleep on the bus, get to the set, we get into makeup, we get into our costume, they put our face on and everything. And then, boy, once you were locked into that suit, good luck trying to use the bathroom, I mean, that was really hard. But then we just wait around. We shot, they wanted us camera ready so that when the sun came up, we were able to work until the sun went down.
Wow.
And some days the weather
that's a crazy day. Up at 3 a.m. until it's a long day.
Until basically, yeah, and then you get home 8 at night, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, do it all over again. There were big guys that were doing, like, I was a smaller guy. I was playing a chimp, but there were some of the big guys playing the gorillas and stuff, man. These guys were passing out. They were dropping like flies, I mean, it was really hard, because to be out in the suit in this hot thing and in the desert on the hot days and then during the cold days, it was really challenging. I would have to say it was the most physically demanding job I've ever done in my life. I couldn't do it now. I mean, I guess I could, but I was a lot younger then, it was a fun experience, because I got to see Paul Giamatti doing his thing, and all the other guys out there. I just remember watching Paul Giamatti do different takes, and then Tim Burton working with chimpanzees and getting frustrated, real chimpanzees. It's like he's like, he just didn't like these chimps, because they were giving him trouble, and they were trying to do this helicopter shot where it's a POV of the ship, and they couldn't get it because the wind, and it was getting too close to us, and they didn't want to have any of us, decapitated, I guess. But so it was just a very challenging shoot. And logistically, we're out in the middle of the desert, so they had to have this tent city set up. Mm-hmm. And then Rick Baker would come in not every day, but he'd come there and he'd line us up, and he'd check our makeup and go, okay, looks good, and look for any little flaws. So I got to see Rick Baker. And the costume designer was Colleen Atwood.
Yes.
I worked with her after on another movie called Lemony Snicket's, a series of unfortunate events.
Yes.
And I was in the whole wedding sequence, which they shot so much stuff that was not in the movie. And they even did close-ups of me that unfortunately didn't make it in the final movie. But they gave me a crazy hair. And Colleen remembered me from Planet of the Apes.
Really, wow.
Picked me out as one of the featured people in the wedding scene. So I had this nice suit and this crazy hair and a mustache, and it was several weeks on that film at Paramount with Jim Carrey, watching him do his thing. It's like having a front row seat to watching Jim Carrey work. I mean, that was a lot of fun. But anyway, so that was a great memory. But Planet of the Apes, very difficult film to work on. And sadly, didn't do the performance and it didn't really come out as well as they had hoped.
Yeah, that movie, I don't know. It's not.
It's too bad, Tyler, because when we were on the set, we're like, wow, the sets were amazing. This whole soundstage, in Culver City at the old MGM Studios, it was Sony, I think. And this set was amazing. It took up an entire soundstage, and it was the ape city and jungle. And then these sets out in the desert. We thought this thing's going to be incredible. Oh, and we had to go to ape school. So what we did, we were trained by this guy that was from the circus. I forget, one of these circus people.
The main guy in that movie, he became like the main ape actor. Like the guy you're talking about, but one of the guys that did the main ape acting. He does all the ape acting in the Planet of the Apes movies now, and like in the movie Nope, Jordan Peele's Nope. He stood in for the ape that they CGI'd.
You're not talking about Andy Serkis, though, right?
No, not Andy Serkis. It's another guy. He
exactly. I know who you're talking about. I forget his name, but so before the movie, we even got into an ape outfit. We had to go to these classes because Tim Burton was very specific. He didn't want us walking like people, like humans. He wanted us to kind of have an ape kind of movement. So we were trained, we were taught to do this kind of walk and thing. And
you ever fall into that ape movement nowadays at all? You ever at the grocery store and you fall into an ape state?
Oh, I'm doing it now. Okay, I mean, no, no. Honestly, that was kind of
about it. It's been 20 years.
That was I want to say I had a lot of fun, and I made a lot of money working many days on that super long hours, right? But getting SAG rates. I wouldn't want to do it again. That was the hardest job. It was in a way fun, but boy, I'll tell you what wasn't fun. They had drill instructors. Like when they had us all in platoons, like we were in the real army. They had military people. And it's like, what do they call them? Like our squads. And if some background player was late, the guy would say, "Get down and give me push-ups." I mean, he would make us do push-ups.
What?
I mean, this was not like a fun, this was like they were treating us like we were in the military. It's like, "You're late, get down and give us like 20 push-ups right now." They wanted to put the fear into us. And now when we were out there fighting with the humans, and they were banging on our heads with these rubber mallets but there was like a metal pole inside these rubber mallets. So man, they were hitting us real hard. And there was all of this, what they called Fuller's Earth. Remember all the dust floating around out there?
Yeah.
Well, there was rumor of a lawsuit that was like a class action. They talked about it. I don't think it ever got off the ground, but a lot of people on that shoot got sick because Tim Burton had a big old ventilator mask, but we were wearing these mask things and we were just breathing in this dust. Okay. And I would have it in my lungs. I mean, if I ever come down with any kind of lung respiratory illness later in life, it's going to be because I worked on that film. And, I mean, there were people that got really sick working on that film. As a matter of fact, my roommate who stayed with me, his name was Mark. He passed away. I don't think it was because of that, but he did a lot of stuff in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He went on to do a lot of higher end background work, but he was a nice guy. He was my roommate, and he got me into Florence Scovel Shinn was her name. He'd be reading these positive books. And anyway, it was kind of sad, to think that he's no longer here. But boy, what an interesting time that was, Tyler, working on that movie. But sadly, yes, all that work. See, it's like you put in all this work on a film and sometimes it just doesn't jive, and people are like, well, that was a thing, it kind of failed. But Burton had the right idea. He wanted everything to be organic. There was not really CGI in that film. He went later, he started doing these things with the Willy Wonka.
Yeah, extended sets and all. It just gets too much.
I think after that film, he was just fed up and said, "I'm going back to animation, man." Because, when I was at Disney Studios working in the mailroom, Tim Burton was there at that time working as an animator. So and I'm from Burbank, and Burton was from Burbank. I'd see him around, and, I see him at Disney, and I went up into the animation wing when he was working on his short film, Vincent. And I'd see these little puppets. But this was like 1981, and Tim Burton, I kid you not. And of course, he became this big deal. And, he's just one of the guys that got lucky. Very talented guy. But Tim Burton is where he really shines is in his art direction. When you see the way he art directs films, because he's basically an animator, he has a great eye. and he has some good ideas, and that's his strength as a director.
Yeah.
If I have to say, if I have a strength, I think I'm pretty good with my. I have a pretty good eye, for cinematography, and I'm very particular about the way I move my camera and camera placement and whatnot. Not to talk about myself, but telling you, Tyler, I know this has been a long-winded answer, but working on that Planet of the Apes film was a monumental, and it's sad the way. It wasn't a bad movie, but it just seemed like it was missing. It was lacking in something.
It's the star. It's
Marky Mark.
Yeah, he doesn't have it.
Yeah, he'd be around on the set, and he'd be like at the studio. He had his bike, his little bike, and he was great in Boogie Nights.
He's great in that movie, but he just
this film he was wrong for.
Yeah. He makes or breaks that movie. He just doesn't have whatever it is. He doesn't have it in Planet of the Apes.
He was playing it too cool for school. He wasn't like, he wasn't really getting it. He's like, hey, but I still have to be cool. Okay, I'm Mark Wahlberg. But you're right. Good point.
Crazy stuff, and he's just like, okay.
She's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll hang with that.
Like Heston, he's big. He's like, he can't believe he's been on Earth.
He's, damn dirty ape. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's over the top, and the movie's over the top. He has to match the energy, and he's just.
That brings me to an interesting point. I love over-the-top performances, okay? Some directors, they want to go totally real. They want to bring it down. Now, Johnny X, Will Keenan did it. I wanted him to underplay, and he always complained about Deanna Joy Brooks did all this broad stuff in the movie, Bliss. But, Will Keenan was known for doing it over the top. But I love actors that like to really chew on the scenery, and they got a good speech in there. They get all kind of crazy.
Yeah,
that's just my style. I mean, some director like Stanley Kubrick, I think he also liked those over the top, crazy, performances, right? The guy at the end of Clockwork Orange, that's just the, with his face, and some of these other, and then, but then you look at like a Spielberg, or he's kind of toned down quite a bit, or Scorsese has some. I love the big. I love it big. Go big or go home.
Yeah, but movies are dreams. They need to be. It's all about tone, and even like David Lynch, he's all about energy. He's all about tone. He can care less about plot. And like when we're stacking, what's important? Is it narrative? Is it plot? Or is it character? Or is it this? And then some directors, to them, it's the narrative is driving the movie. Or for Lynch, it's about what you're feeling, not so much what you should be feeling narratively. It's just how you should be feeling, like Mulholland Drive. It's just we're like having Wizard of Oz being influenced in his movies. Like it's this fantasy. It's a fantasy influence. I mean, movies are timeless. They have no when someone grounds them so much, it's like movies are dreams. Like they need to be big. They need to be stylized. They need to.
Well, you obviously love movies, and you're doing, you are presenting films for people to see, probably films that they've never seen before. But you run older movies and new movies, right?
Yeah.
Thing. And so I am just so thrilled that you're running this theater, and it's wonderful that we've met and that I've been to your theater, and it was so cool. I mean, it was like a theater in Michigan, finally, this cool theater that I, the only thing I could connect with. I tried Michigan for, 6 months, and it was the only thing I could connect with out there was your theater. So anyway, I'm glad you're doing it. You're still doing it, and keep up the great work, Tyler. And I know you want to make films too.
Yeah, I just released a music video on Halloween, so I'll send that link to you. We shot that at the theater this summer.
Awesome.
And just got done. But you might like it. Has a split screen
nice. Okay.
Style to it. can you give me 3 movie suggestions?
Well,
to
I
wrap it up?
basically previously did that, but I'll give them to you again. I would
Yeah.
just suggest.
Oh, those would be the ones you would give out for people.
Let's just start with Phantom of Paradise, okay?
Okay.
Phantom of the Paradise is something that I use to test if someone could be my friend or not.
Okay.
Like if I show it to them and they really don't get it or they don't like it, it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. But we don't have the same sensibilities, so we might not have movie talk together, or especially when I was dating, and if she didn't like the movie, well, that's a deal breaker right there,
Yeah.
But luckily my wife loves Phantom of the Paradise. But also another movie I would recommend if you haven't seen it, and the Criterion Collection has it. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which is coming to 4K. Criterion will be coming up with they haven't announced it yet, but I know through insider friends that.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
well, anyway, but watch It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yeah.
And enjoy, of course, most of the cameos are going to go over the heads of, there are a lot of cameos from the big top comedians of the day. But even
the cameos at the end with the Three Stooges, or the firemen.
Well, that everybody gets, and unfortunately, it's just one shot of them standing there. It's
and they're just the miserablest looking. They're not even smiling, just holding the hose or whatever.
It's like, who's going to come to the rescue? Who are the firemen on this job? Oh my God, it's the Three Stooges. Well, we already know how that's going to go, right? So that's all they needed to do was show one shot of them. Buster Keaton's in it for a few seconds, and there's some wonderful people in it. So it's a mad, 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 mad world. And I guess, I'm sure most everyone has seen Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but if I had to take that one off the table, I would say look for, there's a Charlie Chaplin film that I really love, and it's called City Lights.
Oh, nice.
It was made in 1931 during the sound era, but he made it as a silent film with synchronized music and sound effects. But I love that movie, and it's one of my top films, City Lights, starring Charlie, written, produced, and starring Charlie Chaplin, and he even did the music score. And if you want to take that one off the table, I'll go to one of my favorite old school horror films of all time, The Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, director Mr. James Whale. You can't top The Bride of Frankenstein. That is a beautiful music score by Franz Waxman, and it's got just some colorful characters. It's really a comedy. And that's what I love about it,
It's the first, just the style of it at the beginning with all the fairies and all the tubes in the lab and all the, it's almost like it's like the Frankenstein, the first one, and then the second one's like such a camp, I think, intended style
I
shift.
think he was trying to get away with more, but he used his colorful character actors in there. Ernest Thesiger, who played Dr. Pretorius, and who was also in the old Dark House, if you've seen that James Whale thing. But there's so much great stuff in The Bride of Frankenstein. So I recommend Bride of Frankenstein. I love old movies, obviously. Bride of Frankenstein, City Lights. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And if you want to get into a newer film, Phantom of the Paradise. Oh my goodness! Now that's an old movie too. But so those are movies I love. And you probably want to know if I have any song recommendations.
Yeah, you have 3 song suggestions.
Let's see. I love Chopsticks. That's a good one. Happy Birthday. That's a fun song.
Oh, these are all classic. Yeah, very hip.
Yes. No, honestly, I was thinking about it because I knew you were going to ask me this. So again, I love old stuff. There's one, I think my all-time favorite song. It's a standard now. It's called Stardust, written by Mr. Hoagie Carmichael. And it goes back to 1927, I think, is when the song was written. And it's been recorded by anyone and everyone since. But a few of my favorite renditions, a couple at least, would be Louis Armstrong recorded that song in 1931. I think that's my favorite rendition of Stardust. And Bing Crosby sang it also in 1931. And I love Faust from Phantom of the Paradise, written by Paul Williams. As a matter of fact, I love a lot of songs that Paul Williams wrote. And believe it or not, he wrote the theme for The Love Boat. I'm not suggesting The Love Boat. But, and did you know that We've Only Just Begun the song that Paul Williams wrote that the Carpenters recorded was originally written as a jingle for a bank commercial. A young couple we're starting out, and we've only just begun to live. And he only had a few lyrics, and he expanded it, turned it into a full song. But that was a jingle for a bank commercial.
Wow. I mean, Paul Williams is a songwriter, like the Rainbow Connection. I mean, he knew how to he knew how to write them. I mean, he just I don't know if he's just a master.
That's another criticism I get. Well, you had Paul Williams in the movie. Why couldn't he write the songs? Well, Paul Williams was very expensive. For songwriting and acting are two entirely different things.
Yeah.
But another song that you may never, I'm sure you probably never heard of this song, but it's a song I really like. It's called Every Little Thing You Love. And it's a newer song. It was recorded in 2011 by a little local band. I think was a group out of Massachusetts called the Binars. And they made a music video for it. And I discovered the song when my movie played in San Francisco at a film festival there in 2012. And they had a short film, like a 10-minute, basically essentially music video to the song Every Little Thing You Love by the Binars. And I love the music video. It's a short film, and I love the song. And I would recommend it if you haven't found it. Google it. Every Little Thing You Love. Watch the YouTube video of the short film. It's really a cool little music video. And I like the song so much that I worked it into my film Rocket Girl. Whether or not I end up using it, it kind of plays an important part. So, but anyhow, that's the song I recommend. So there you go.
Okay, great. Songs. So the final question is, do you like pineapple on pizza?
Well, depends on if that's the only thing on your pizza. But, I would like it. I love pepperoni pizza. Okay. If you were to I've never tried pineapple on that. But I would be open to, because I love pineapple. So yeah, I'd have to say yes. Why not? I would say yes. If it was just pineapple, you mean just pineapple pizza?
Yeah.
Now here's my interview with Jed Rowen discussing the Ghastly of Johnny X, playing Sluggo, and much more.
Yeah, Jed, can you talk about kind of Johnny X and how you got into that project and how you met Paul and the process of making a movie over like almost 10 years, right? The process of making that movie? What was that like?
When an actor gets a job, I'm like, hey man, how'd you get that? Because it's such a kind of a fascinating tale of how actors get jobs. It's almost never traditional. Like it's never like a regular way of doing it. It's always just kind of some weird adventure that you get in a movie. Yeah, I was with these other filmmakers in some weird warehouse in North Hollywood, doing this crazy movie, and one of the friends of a friend's came by. Yeah, I have a friend who's making a movie. Hey Jed, you have an 8x10. This is when people actually had physical 8x10s. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll bring one by. So I gave it to this friend of a friend, and he's off. Somehow that 8x10 got to Paul Bunnell somehow, and then I guess I got a call from him out of the blue. Hey, do you want to audition for my movie? And then I actually went and auditioned, and here I am. And this is 2004, right? Yeah. And me and Paul were talking about this the other day. This movie I think it actually started in like 2002. They were doing some kind of footage out in the desert.
Yeah, like test shoots or something like that.
Yes, you mentioned. Test shoots. So technically, this started like that long ago, and we were like, it's been actually 20 years since we started the first shoots of Johnny X, and it's kind of mind-boggling to think of that, but it's actually a little more than 20 years when they actually first started doing it. So But actually, I guess that's not such a crazy story of like saying I gave someone my 8x10 and I got in a movie. I guess that's actually pretty normal. But it is kind of weird.
But I think with you, you have such a like your look fits Johnny X so perfectly. I think it was just like to know that you did not know Paul ahead of time.
No,
is so bizarre that you think I don't know you. I mean, people talk about like it factor, and you have a certain look to your.
Yes.
I don't know.
It's a slug. It's a sluggo look. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Especially when I have my bald head. But it's like the point is just being in some really weird warehouse way up Lancashire Boulevard in North Hollywood, and from there to somehow find yourself on a set, like a historical set, with this grandiose crew and production budget and just like to be in a once in a lifetime film coming from a weird warehouse in Lancashire in North Hollywood. It's kind of crazy if you think about it. I'm sure if you notice that film, what is kind of remarkable about it is just how much the actors, how well they did with the casting. The actors really just fit the roles. Not only do I look like a sluggo, but all the other actors just, I don't know, they cast it kind of perfectly, I think.
Yeah, the faces. I mean, like they talk about like Serge Leone in all of his westerns, like casting just the extras having unique faces, and like in Johnny X, like everybody has. Everything's been curated to have that retro, that vintage look, but like you're saying, but the actors just fit right into that vintage feel of it, that kind of classic Americana kind of look. How would you pitch Johnny X to somebody that has never seen that movie? Because it's a little bit of everything.
I call it, like I said this, but I try to remember. I say it's a black and white sci-fi musical Americana adventure. I think I kind of say that. I might leave out a couple of those words or add a couple more words, but sci-fi musical, and I guess also the black and white. That kind of people perk up, when they hear that.
Yeah,
and
like
then I kind of go
rockabilly kind of thing.
That's actually a great. I should actually include that what I described, because rockabilly, people like that, and it kind of is. That movie really is kind of a once in a lifetime thing. No one else will really make a movie like that at that level, and it was just the stars aligned for me to be in it.
Yeah, and from your theater background, I mean, it has kind of a theatrical vibe to it, and I thought that also that kind of fit, even though it has these sets that are totally like they have a very like handmade set. Some of the sets to that movie, I mean, that kind of fit your background in theater a little bit.
Oh yeah, it was definitely like, particularly when we're doing, the musical numbers or even a lot of the great dramatic moments of the movie. Absolutely, it really felt like I was just like in a play. What's really cool about a lot of the movies that I do, including Johnny X and a lot of others, is they have that kind of avant-garde, rebellious kind of underground feel to them. Mm-hmm. And Johnny X certainly feels like, when you go see Johnny X, that you're going to go see like this really kind of crazy musical in like a little warehouse kind of play in the middle of the outskirts of town or something like that.
How did you prepare for your role, Sluggo? And Johnny, I mean, how do you watch any other movies? How do an actor, how do you become that character, and also keep that character over numerous years to come back to it?
What's kind of interesting about that question is that, I decided ultimately not to overthink the character, meaning I wanted to feel, pretty organic. I didn't want to play Sluggo like, I'm Sluggo. I didn't want to play him too charactery. I wanted to have me just bringing, myself and my kind of immediate interpretation, into the role, if that makes sense. So wasn't like one of
what
these.
was that? What was that like? Like, hey, we're gonna pause this. We're gonna come back when we can come back. Like, it just seems
It's
like
such a crazy story because he Paul got the rest of the budget in like the 11th hour, right?
yeah,
And to get everybody back, years later,
a
and
miracle.
everyone looked pretty much the same.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
someone could easily have gained 100 pounds or become any other ailment of 6 or 7 years of living, right?
yeah.
And it just like meant to be. I don't mean to sound too kooky or anything, but I forget. It's the summer solstice, right? I think it's like June 20th or 21st or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first production day fell on that day in 2004, and then when we came back in 2010, it fell on that same date, the same summer solstice day, whatever it is, like June or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances of that? And it's just like, that just proves that there's some kind of like, dare we say it, higher force that's manifesting this, But and just the fact that we got everybody back and the fact that it was able to finish, it's just, like I said, those kind of things, it's usually the opposite happens where things just go to hell, and then you figure out like, is it abandoned or whatever, and it's hard to find like a happy ending to every film production story, but this was just almost like this mystical experience of how it all wound up.
Yeah, movies are miracles that when they come together and they all work. And
yes,
yeah,
every movie is a miracle. Every movie is a miracle.
Yeah.
There's so many moving parts and so many. I don't even know how anyone even does it. But I'm sorry, what were you saying?
When they're being made to being released to then being a good movie, like it all comes together. Then you make a bad, like then it just turns out that people don't, for that moment, they don't like it, and then you're like it like came together here, and then like it just But
I mean, even like the worst crappy movies that somehow you see whatever on DVD or streaming, whatever, even those are miracles that just all those people showed up. Who knows how much they were getting paid, if they're getting paid at all, and just have all of these like disparate personalities and conflicting things, and then there's the expense of it, and then there's this, actually, if you're managed to finish making the movie, you got to edit it, and then when you're done with editing it, does it find distribution anywhere?
And then marketing it, like, how are we gonna market this movie?
Marketing it, like how many films like want to be in your theater, like to have this incredible screening, but they, getting in like a real theater, like your theater, I mean, that's not easy to pull off,
Yeah.
And very few films, as much as many a film that do pull that off, so many don't. So even just doing that, like being at a movie theater like yours, even that's like this crazy miracle accomplishment. Just getting the money together to do a movie. I mean, even if it's like this low budget movie, like $80,000 or whatever, it's still $80,000.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up that money around.
Yeah, and nobody goes into making a bad. Every movie's a good movie going into it, and it's just the certain those things.
Nobody, exactly right. Nobody sets out to make a bad movie, even if they want to do it for whatever ulterior motive, like the tax write-off or whatever. The filmmaker still doesn't want to make a bad movie. The actors don't want to make a bad movie. The script writer doesn't want to write a bad script. The crew people don't want it. Everyone wants to make a really good movie,
Yeah.
So 100% of people that try to do this, and it's just it just what they have to deal with, from weather conditions to actors not showing up, to producers and directors fighting, to
Egos, you know.
egos, to people getting hurt on the set, to
Yeah.
money running out, to people getting food poisoning from the crafty. You know,
Yeah.
It's all a miracle, and I don't really expect the general public to really know that or care about that.
And I saw that you were in a Radioactive Chicken Heads music video.
Ah, yes, I saw. Funny you mentioned that. I just saw Aaron,
Yeah.
the main chicken head guy at a book signing a couple days ago. So it's interesting you mentioned that. I was like, hey, remember that music video? He's like, because he edits all the music videos. We're talking about editing, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm like, remember we did that? It was on a farm, you know, it was on this huge farm.
They're rebelling. The chicken heads are fighting the farmers, and like they're fighting, and then the twist ending, the kind of like the ending of Freaks. It's like human heads on chicken bodies, and they're clicking around.
Oh yeah, that was. I met a lot of great people on that set, and that was a very ambitious, amazing shoot.
But just like I don't know, like looking at your filmography, like it just seems, I don't know, like what would you say about your energy? That, I mean, just saying yeah. I mean, it's not just saying yes, but what about you that brings that kind of this kind of?
You know, I think that you know, the fact that I'm a kind of a weirdo helps. You know, I look a little, you know, I don't have really kind of completely normal features, really. So that lends itself. But, you know, I think there's larger issues. Like if you look at my career, right, it's not really kind of a normal kind of career. Like, okay, I got the episodic co-star or guest star, and it led to this kind of normal episodic thing. I think I really do have a destiny too. I think my destiny is going to intersect with episodics, but from the get-go, from the beginning, it's always been weird movies, cult movies. The first movie I did up in the Bay Area was this movie called Sausalito, and you know, I did that with Leon Lai and Maggie Chung. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but I just kind of walked into this movie and I started doing background. They're like, hey, do you want to come back and be like a recurring homeless guy? I'm like, sure. And then I did it. And then like 10 months later, I was at some play, and I saw this girl, she was in the crew, and she goes, hey, that movie is out. It went #1 in Hong Kong, and it's in like 5 Asian countries. And I'm like, what? Nobody told me. And so I found out it was playing in the Richmond district, and I saw this movie, and it's kind of like crazy, cult, weird phenomenons that I kind of specialize in.
Yes.
You know, I was in this movie, Amazing Bulk, that is notorious.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes.
So
you could talk about a whole episode. I wanted to focus this in on just Johnny X, but
so you know about that credit, huh?
Oh, I do.
I mean, that was just some random weekend that, you know, Dave Sterling, the producer, and you know, was like, hey, you want to be in this movie? It's on a green screen at the time in the mid 2000s. Like nobody was making entire movies on a green screen, right? That we've gotten so used to that.
A Sin City vibe, kind of.
Yeah,
that's what they're trying to go for, to give people an idea of what the bulk is.
Yeah, and Lewis was telling, you know, Lewis, the director, was telling me how, like, you know, I have all these backgrounds for these cool, like, you know, animation backgrounds, and I'm like, exactly what you said, like, oh, this is like a cool Sin City graphic art kind of movie. And so it was just kind of some random weekend. I did that, didn't really think anything of it. And then years later, it becomes this global phenomenon. I mean, it was just some like random thing I did becomes this worldwide, the whole world's laughing at it, right? And it's a movie you can't try to get that kind of publicity or
but I think like
following.
laughing at him. I mean, it holds its heart on its sleeve.
Yes.
It is what it's genuine in what it's trying to do, even if it's not exactly perfect. But it's constant in the tone. Like if
Yeah.
it didn't know what it was doing, the tone would be all over the place. But it's exactly what it is. I mean, I don't know. I kind of
You're
debate on people laughing, like when
oh
people kind of laugh at bad. It's like I don't know. It's goofy, but like it knows what it is. You know.
yes, you're very kind. Very good. Good for. I really like what you said. It's very kind of you. And let's just
Or
say
you can,
laugh with. How about that? They're laughing with.
with the ball. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of people laugh at it, but like I'm always kind of, I don't know. The more you love movies, it's just like in making movies, it's like people try their hardest, even when it's garbage. There's a lot of
Exactly.
hard.
And you know what's really kind of funny about that movie? I was just always kind of intrigued with it because it was like this. Like I said, it was so unique. And at the time, no one was doing entire movies on green screens with these kind of amazing backgrounds that Lewis got from. I don't even know where he got them from, but it was like they were such interesting. It was such an interesting visual kind of thing, and the actors were having so much fun with it. I mean, when I first heard about Amazing Bulk, the first reaction I was when I'm like, oh, what's the title of it? And Sterling goes, or Lewis or whoever it was said Amazing Bulk. I started laughing. I'm like, oh, you mean like the Incredible Hulk and the Amazing Bulk? So
Yeah,
I think if you go in this movie expecting some great dramatic, you know, uh, art, art form, well, I mean, you're kind of I don't know what you're thinking, because this movie is kind of a joke from the get go,
yeah, yeah.
And who
But
knows? Maybe you'll not to put you on the spot, but maybe you'll play Bulk someday at your theater.
you have to do some kind of intro about, or I don't know, talk. Yeah. I know it's been on a lot of people like podcast. Like people talking. Like it's been kind of a notable
Oh, it's all over the place.
movie.
And
Yeah.
don't worry, you don't have to commit now. You don't have to commit to it.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a. I'm actually really surprised that because I love conventions. I'm really surprised. Like conventions, if you're out there, like I'm ready to promote Bulk. The whole world knows about it. Let's go. Let's make those $20 per autographs. I'm ready to go with Bulk.
Yeah, like a bulk mat, like those paper masks with a little rod, and you can hold it. Done.
Love it. Yeah, and I've been in a lot of really cool horror movies lately, and
Yep, the slasher movie you were just in.
Blind, and then
Yeah.
Pretty Boy, which has yet to be released. Hopefully, it'll be released soon. It's taking forever.
Yeah, so with Pretty Boy, the sequel to Blind, being a masked killer, do you use kind of masked work, or how do you convey action without using your face and like?
Well,
being
that's really a great question, and one that I really thought a lot about. As I was trying to figure out how to play the role that had no lines and did not show my face at all. I'm like, how am I going to make this like powerful? How am I going to make it memorable or unique? As I was really thinking about it and trying to figure out, I'm like, I went back to my theater days, and even at school where I would take acting classes, and you do all of these like weird artsy fartsy exercises as an actor, like all these movement exercises. Okay, pretend that you're a fish, or pretend that you're getting mauled by rats or whatever, or pretend you're falling off a cliff, and you do these like really artsy fartsy things. And I'm like, you know what, that's what I really have to draw from, like like a stunt guy would play it, and figuring out the stunts. I have to make this emotional. I have to make it something that people can connect with emotionally.
In the script, does it tell you the action, or how? I mean, is it just description of like he's doing this, he's doing that?
Yeah,
I mean,
it really is. it really is like just the script was as great a, you know, it's a great script, but it was mostly, you know, just the action. And I had to figure out how I was going to make these scenes, how to connect with Sarah, how to connect with the audience, how to do it in a way that it is not your typical mass killer, but to make it something where the audience actually cares about the killer. You know, I can't wait for everybody to see Pretty Boy, because, you know, Pretty Boy takes that whole thing to another level. It takes Blind to a whole other level. It's just I think it's my, you know, best horror movie I've been in, even though, you know, it's kind of hard to compare movies. You know what I mean? Every movie can be so unique and different. And even several I've done since then with Marcel, they're incredible. And,
I think movies are like it's who you're in love with at the moment. You know, like it's
yeah,
like
exactly. And I think it's also too, I'm a little biased because I was the title character in it, so that might have something to do with it. You know.
Yeah. So what's the movie for people who haven't seen it? What can you describe Blind and Pretty Boy for
well,
people,
you know, you've seen Blind, right?
I've not seen it. I read about it. I read about it, but I didn't to get into this interview, but I didn't watch it yet.
Blind, you know, Pretty Boy's not out yet.
Yeah.
And Blind is something that I think if you want something that's a little different from your standard fare when it comes to mass killer movies, where you might even, you know, sympathize with a killer, or if it maybe empathize and sympathize are the wrong words, but you know, the killer could actually bring up certain emotional responses from you that aren't just, you know, pure disgust or being appalled, but you're like, oh, that killer, like, I feel something for that poor guy. You know, if you're interested in a movie like that, that's what Blind is. And
Okay.
along with amazing performances by Sarah and her amazing emotional performance, I think they're just two great emotional performances, very different kind of performances, but it's more of a kind of a emotional experience than your typical, you know, killer movie. Blind was kind of a lot of different genres mixed in. When people are calling it film noir, people are calling it drama, people are calling it all sorts of different genres. Pretty Boy is really kind of more of a standard horror movie, but brings a lot of the issues I talked about, the themes I talked about, the approaches to the character I talked to that Blind had. Okay. So hopefully that will come out before Pretty Boy is pretty old, you know. But you know how distro can be, you know. You can take I mean, look at Johnny X. It took a while. So these movies, they're on their own schedule.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody about, like, everything has its own time. Like, even though it takes everything happens for the time it needs to come out, even though, like, in the moment it feels so frustrating that, like, why is it not happening? But when it
I mean, it's almost like, you know, I'm talking about, like, me as, you know, having my own destiny as an actor.
Yeah.
It's almost like movies really have their own path, their own destiny, their own when and how they manifest into the world. I mean, they have their own journey. You just have to learn in this business as an actor or anyone that's involved with movie making. You just have to learn patience. And like you said, you have to understand that it has its own time that's supposed to happen with it. That's how I rationalize, you know,
Yeah. What would you say the quality of an actor someone should have becoming an actor? What are some of the things they should have internally to be an actor?
Well, you know, I think that really, like anything else, you really, no matter what you're doing as an artist, you really have to start off with, do I really have great respect for the craft? I don't care if you're a novelist, a writer, a painter, a sculptor. Are you in it for the long haul? Not in terms of any kind of, you know, material success or notoriety you can gain. You know, we all, of course, that helps us. Do you have such an incredible respect for the craft that you're willing to train in it, learn, about it endlessly, that you are willing to suffer with it, to go through all the ups and downs with it? Are you willing to live and die with it? You know, when you find, are you passionate about it? Because when you're really passionate about something, like your movie theater, for instance,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been leaks in the roof, right? I'm sure there's been times where, whoa, this just caved in or whatever, or
Yeah,
this
yeah.
this is probably. You have to have a great love like what you have for not only movies, but just the whole amazing movie theater experience that you have, that you just have to be so in love with it and so in love with the craft of it that you're able to go through all the ups and downs. And I think an actor should just really ask themselves, like, at the end of the day, do you feel lucky doing this? And if you can't say yes to that, you should think about doing something else. Because I always basically and fundamentally, I feel very lucky to be able to be an actor.
Let's just talk about movies. So you were saying earlier you like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Are there any other movies that you just love to watch or would
Well,
love to talk about?
I'll say this. You know, I was lucky to be in a movie. You know, Blind. You know, Caroline Williams is in that, and then I later did a movie, Chastise, with Bill Moseley, who's kind of a personal hero of mine. I love so many movies, and there's rarely a movie I see that has no redeeming value, whether it's a prop or an actor's monologue or a set or the way a scene was edited. I could see really great things in even the worst movies, but a couple of movies.
Don't waste. Like people say, like that movie wasted my time. It's like no, like you should get something out of every movie you watch if you're a serious movie
Absolutely.
watcher.
And there's so many different facets to a movie. I mean, whether it's, like I said, an actor's, you know, monologue or a performance or a set or a prop or the score or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a multi-human endeavor of creativity that I don't think there are any throwaway movies. I think there's always something special about a movie. There were a couple of movies that I think really influenced me on being an actor, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is definitely one of them, because it's just, I love the theater of the absurd. That's where I've come from in the theater, and to me that was one of the first movies I saw at a very young age where I was like, you can make a movie that is completely ridiculously absurd. And it doesn't just have to be a drama or a straight horror movie or something. It could be something where it makes such a statement about the absurdity of life. And that really resonates with me. And that was a big influence. And the other major influence for me in terms of even just becoming an actor was RoboCop. I love RoboCop. It's like an anthem to me. The performances.
There's a great documentary that just came out called RoboDoc.
Oh yes.
I recommend if you've not seen it yet, you should watch.
You know, I have not seen that movie, but I mean that doc, but I can't wait to see it. And I've seen all these other docs. I mean, I'm like a RoboCop scholar,
or the RoboCop remake. Sorry, the RoboCop.
Oh yeah, I've seen all the RoboCops.
There's like a fan remake. Someone remade RoboCop. Have you watched that?
Yeah. I saw that with the guy getting shot in the alleyway. Yeah. I mean, even the RoboCop remake that everyone hated or whatever, I liked it. I mean, if you're trying to compare it to the original, which is easy to do, that's not fair to anybody. No one is going to top RoboCop.
Yeah,
I even like RoboCop 3 with the ninjas flying around. I like that. I thought it was actually this really kind of like political statement that it was making. If you can get beyond the flying ninjas and everything, they were talking about corporate America, and the second one was doing that. As imperfect as those movies were, you know, I just think that spirit of RoboCop, it was such a great first movie that even some of the you know, were good.
Yeah, even the sequels, they took risks in doing a different tone.
Yes.
Even if the tone isn't the first movie, at least they did something different.
They took risks.
Some sequels just copy and paste and they do the same thing again. And it's like, I'd rather have them do something completely different. Gremlins 2. I love Gremlins 2 because it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It's a complete one. It's everything like the first movie, but not that. It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's the
Yeah.
opposite. And RoboCop, like you said, the second one, they made all these crazy risks, like the little kid is the crime syndicate leader, and the drug that everyone was taking. It was just so many things that some of them worked, some of them were just quirky. The third one took even more risks.
The jetpack, he flies around.
And like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I mean, the whole thing was a risk. The whole thing was like this crazy thing that somehow got through the studio system somehow.
Yeah, the first RoboCop, Paul Verhoeven.
Oh yeah.
Cinematography, the music, the story.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's really a I regard it as a perfect movie.
Yeah. Are there any other perfect movies that you would say that exist?
You know what's kind of funny about that? If you look at, and these aren't my favorite movies, right? I'm just talking about not my favorite movies, but like a perfect movie, right? Like if you look at some of the movies, like for instance, Copland, right? I think that's kind of a perfect movie. You know, people don't necessarily love it, or people don't really think about it maybe that much, but I've seen it like a million times on cable. And I think it's not my favorite movie, but I would regard it as kind of a perfectly done movie, regardless of how much you like it or not. Crimes and Misdemeanors, right? I kind of view that movie as kind of a perfectly done movie. And, there's movies like that, people maybe don't think of them, they like them. They're really good movies, but in terms of the craft of filmmaking, those are a couple of examples of movies that, since you brought it up, to me are kind of like perfectly crafted movies, from the script to the casting to the direction to the editing to everything about them.
Being in production, can you enjoy watching a movie anymore? Or are you always nitpicking
that is a real problem in LA, and I have this buddy, an actor friend, we talk about it all the time, is that a lot of people just kind of wind up not being able to enjoy movies because they're thinking about them over analytically, or being judgmental, or falling into snobbery. And if there's one thing that I've never turned into any kind of film snob, because I think maybe when I was younger, very, very much younger I was, but when you go through how hard it is to make a movie, okay? And I really come from the movies where I'm really from. I'm from the supermarket parking lot with a camcorder. That's where I'm from making movies, right? I appreciate too much of the heart and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into a movie that I just, can I be a little snobbery at times? Well, we all can, right? But I cut movies a lot of slack, man. A lot of slack, Now some, I can go a little Roger Ebert on you, but, for the most part, it's like, boy, it's a tough thing to try to do. And like I said, I think that every movie has a redeeming aspect or aspects to it.
Yeah, that's everything for me. Any other thing you'd want to wrap up this interview with?
I wanted to mention this briefly, is that, I don't know if Paul's told you, but he's gearing up to do another movie.
He is. He talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, and thankfully I'm in it. And it's the remake.
You're like Sluggo too. I'm not playing Sluggo's brother,
I can't wait for that one. Sluggo's Revenge, right? Let's do it. Thrilled that I'm reunited with Paul Bunnell and another one of his amazing projects, and so I just wanted to bring that up to you and everyone out there listening. Is there's another Paul Bunnell masterpiece coming your way?
Yeah.
And hint, maybe you'll show it in your movie and I can come visit.
Yeah.
Theater.
Yeah.
Your movie theater, I can come visit. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it'll be fun.
But
cool.
That's very exciting. And again, thank you for supporting Paul's films and and to being such a champion of Johnny X. It really means a lot to him. It means a lot to me and people like you that own these great movie theaters out there, these great independent movie theaters. I mean, that's really kind of what gave Johnny X a lot of life, was these mom and pops all over the country and even around the world were supporting the movie. And that's really what it's all about. These cult movies, like you said, to be supported. It's great when a corporate chain does it. The backbone of features are people like you and what you do, and the fact that you're supporting movies like that. It keeps these movies relevant to the public. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you again for taking the time to talk with me and chat movies. And
thanks go to you, man. It was really fun. And again, man, thank you for all your support. And we look forward to having you see this next Paul Bunnell movie.
Okay, so Ladyship, Warship, can you talk about the song Get Me Out of Here and the inspiration for it?
Obviously, we were in lockdown for quite a while, and we had that instrumental part, the riff, that we were toying around with, and we kind of just pretty quickly after that, it kind of wrote itself with everything going on in COVID lockdown era. So yeah, there was obviously a lot of frustration. A lot of people were, had that sentiment of just not feeling helpless and not being able to do anything. And also you can understand that, yes, you need to do this, but it's also, it's hard. It was tough, and didn't seem like there was any way out. And so I thought the song kind of tapped into that sort of angstiness.
The division that people were in during those times, it was very sad, for us. We were just seeing like people getting upset over, just anything related to like, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? And if you wear a mask, suddenly you're just, labeled you as some type of a person. And it was just all of it was weird. And so yeah, it was our kind of way of working through it. We were so thankful to be, have a home studio that we could just go escape into and work together. And
talk about working together. How does that come about? I mean, how do you collaborate together?
Usually when we go into the studio and we just start playing, a lot of times, I'll start playing a riff or she'll play a beat, and we just, since it's just the two of us, it's just batting ideas back and forth like a tennis match almost. And
we're thankful it just comes easy. Like the first song we actually wrote or recorded as Ladyship, Warship was The Earth Opened Up, and thankfully we had everything running to record because that was the song. Like it came out and that was it, and we had to learn how to play it afterwards. We were like, what did we do? What were we? What was going on there? And so somehow we're able to tap into just let go, and just let it happen. So yeah,
and having the technology in the basement it's a great thing.
What do you do to channel the muse? Is there anything that do you like to walk, or how do you what kind of other creative space? Is there anything how do you channel that energy? Is there anything else?
Walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love walking.
Especially during lockdown, it was like it was apparent that you could fall into a black hole very easily, and a lot of people did. And one thing we did was we're gonna walk like every street in our neighborhood, and then we started driving to other neighborhoods to walk their streets. So we would do that, and just a lot of routine things like that, just to not
go insane.
Not fall down that hole, and not replace it with alcohol or something equally as
relatively healthy thing to do. Yeah, very healthy thing to do actually.
And where can people find your music? At what website or Spotify?
Bandcamp's the best place because I think
we get paid.
Yeah, we get paid that way, which is
real money.
Yeah, Ladyship, Warship, FilmTell.bandcamp.com. Yeah.
But if you stream us on YouTube or Apple Music or Amazon Music or Spotify or any of the other places you go.
8th.
Hey, Zach, you should come over
December
here.
8th. December 8th, yeah. Easter market. Hey.
Hey, Zach, can you talk about filming the Ladyship Warship Get Me Out of Here music video?
Yeah, we were in dire straits in the middle of the mountains. We didn't even have a camera. We used a potato, and we poked a hole in it, and
we had to get that village to convince them to help us.
We did.
And they did not want to, and they did.
Before the sun
They did
went
not want
down.
to.
It was
Exactly.
getting close,
It was getting close, and we all know what happens to the villagers once the sun goes down. They start the cult stuff, and
Oh,
so we
yes.
had to get it done before
Make
that.
them move that boat up the mountain.
Yes.
The boat.
Yeah.
We had to get the boat over the mountain,
Caligire.
and nobody. Yeah, you need the audience needs to be able to trust what they see on the frame, and so we made that happen.
Yeah.
We brought the opera to the people. So.
So Zach, can you talk about filming the music video in the theater? Oh, yeah. It's kind of a return to home because you used to work here as well.
Yes, we also filmed in the theater, not in the mountains, and yes, it was a returning to home for me, as I used to work here at the historic Howell Theater. Felt very comfortable in the environment, and I felt that it was run very smoothly. Shout out to my first AD, Devin Murphy, who could not make it today because she has intense social anxiety, but I'm here to represent. I had a lot of fun making it.
What about the equipment you used?
Oh yeah, what equipment did I use? I had a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. I think I used a Sigma Art series lens, a 35 millimeter. And then I think we had, what did we have? We had some like Astra tubes or something, some RGB tubes. And then one big aperture. It was like a 600X or something like that. And that was just sort of for like ambient light. And then the RGB tubes were sort of to get the blue and red effect. And what else? I think that was it. Yeah, we just had.
It was a one-day shoot. It was a one-day shoot.
It was a one-day shoot. Yes. It was ran very efficiently. We got it all done.
It was. You guys were awesome. Really.
I left banana peels everywhere, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was perfect. Good. Can you talk about filming with us, or?
It's probably the most enjoyable and quickest video we've ever done, and nothing was dumped on my head. We weren't shot at. We didn't get attacked by snakes in some godforsaken lake. Those are all true stories. So yeah, it was great. It seemed like, oh, it's done already. It was like, wow, that was just so fast, and it was fun and quick.
It's about a year since I approached you after FuzzFest to make the video after that concert.
Yeah, we were so thankful for that. Thank you. Thank you. Because we've seen the video. It hasn't been shown to the public yet, but tonight it will be, and it is amazing. Yeah. And the colors are just beyond our expectations. It's just visually, it's the Army of Darkness poster looking here on this wall.
Yeah, for me, like inspired by the movie Vortex, the dual imagery, just like the scrolling. I don't know, just having an active frame throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whole video. So.
And the masking of
the masking, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could read into the video if you want, or you could just let it be all style. And
exactly. It was a bit of both, and we appreciate that because style is always important, and visually it is beautiful.
And the psychedelic stuff, I always wanted to do that.
That's really
cool.
That's awesome, and we're so thankful for everyone that showed up and put the masks on and tried to lip sync the chorus for us.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how challenging that was. My phrasing was a little bit odd for some, but we really appreciated everyone's effort and their time and energy, and you guys were really just fantastic. I can't say it enough. So awesome. We look forward to working with you again.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime. Okay. And we'll send everyone to you.
Yeah.
You need to come see them if you need a awesome music video.
And to Zach. Where can they find your stuff, Zach?
ZachNoonan.com. or what's my Instagram handle? At Zach_P_Noonan. But ZachNoonan.com, NOONAN. You can just email me there, zach.filmmaker@gmail.com.
Thank you, Zach. Where can I find your music one more time?
Ladyship Warship.bandcamp.com.
Awesome.
There it
Cool.
is.
Well, thank you again.
Yes, 2 ships. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I know it's sad. You're going to miss my voice, but it's the final moments of episode 4 of the FilmTell podcast. I'm leaving you now with Liza Minnelli trying to go to Chick-fil-A.
Sweetheart, Chick-fil-A isn't open on Saturdays. It's not open on Sundays? Well, I've been confused this whole time. I didn't know that.
Holy cow, we did it. Episode 4 of the FilmTell podcast is in the can. Wow. Okay. It's edited by and hosted by Tyler DePerro. Music by Jim Miles, Wow Bob Wow, and Ladyship Warship. The Liza Minnelli impersonation was done by Ford Fanter. This has been a FilmTell production.